shocking story about a teenage boy diagnosed with a head cold. After reaching out for a second opinion, was diagnosed with cancer. Find out if we've ever felt passionate enough to dare to ask a question for a second opinion. Also, after James's thoughts on Thursday, we talk about students' mental health and going back home for Christmas. Also, we share a choir getting together for Lincolnshire Day. Find out if we've ever been touched by music. Also, a choir we're thinking about, a mystery panel member, and another way to get in touch. So tonight on the panel, we have a very new panellist. Good evening, Sue Humphrey.
Good evening, everybody. Hello, Nate. Nice to see you.
The heart of Liverpool herself, Kerry Gillespie.
Hi. How are you?
And keeping them all in line is me, Nicholas James. All that and a lot more on this week's Loose Link. Good evening.
Hello.
How are you all doing?
All good. Good
You're finding this a little bit weird? Because really, we're not a full panel till we're a panel of four, are we? We're not a full panel till we're a panel of four. So we've got a mystery guest, a mystery panellist that might be coming back or might be someone brand new. But here's some clues. He once came on the show as red as a beetroot and wore a Freddy Krueger hat. He's never shy on sharing an opinion. And his favourite line is, "I agree with you, Kerry." And he sounds like this.
All right, cheeky.
Bringing him over from Loose Lincoln to Loose Links, bringing him back to the family. Please welcome Mike Curtis.
Yay.
Good evening, Mike.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, welcome back. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Well, let's see if you carry on your favourite phrase. Let's see if we carry on. I'm very well, thank you. We've missed you. Have you been up to much the last couple of weeks?
No, just going back to work and getting used to the new reality, really.
Yeah, exactly. And we welcome Sue Humphrey as a new panellist joining the panel. How are you feeling, Sue?
A little bit nervous, but okay, thank you.
Oh,
nice
you'll
to
be
see
fine.
your smiley faces.
You'll be fine. Just make sure you get your words said in, though, especially with these two on the panel. So make sure you speak up. Make sure you speak up. So tonight we share our first topic with Grimsby. Good evening. No, we don't. We share last week's polls. We share last week's polls on our debates and topics. Give me a second. So last week's polls were soap dramas. Do we think that domestic abuse should be within soap dramas? 86% said yes, 14% said no. Comment from Ray, we work with challenging go behaviour and use the soaps to open discussion awkward topics. I think that's really good, actually, that especially if they're doing stuff like that. Selfish when it comes to panic buying for toilet roll. 98% said yes, 2% said no. Lots of comments on that topic. Sandra said people create their own shortages. If they just stopped as normal, there'll be plenty for everyone. Supermarkets are as much to blame. Also, the councillor in Boston, people in authority treated differently. 94% said yes, 6% said no. We had a comment, rules are rules, and people in authority should lead by example. Thank you for joining our polls and commenting. Remember, it's your show as well as ours, so please keep commenting. And we will share a new way that you can connect with us this evening at the end of the show. So, going on to our first topic now. Good evening, Grimsby. As we talk about quite a shocking story, really, a Lincolnshire teenager who was wrongly diagnosed with a head cold. eventually having brain cancer. The teenager struggled with severe headaches when his mum was not happy with what the doctor said. She went for a second opinion. Have you ever not been satisfied with what has been said to you or a friend or a family member in a situation, or felt someone was being very unprofessional with you? Over to you, Pam.
Medically?
Medically or in any situation, really. Have you ever felt like you've been unfairly treated, or felt like someone's been totally unprofessional with you and just was not happy with the service?
I have, yeah. So I have quite a complex health condition, which for 5 years was misdiagnosed, and what it did is it produced benign tumours, and there was a lot of confusion and concern around potential cancer, and I've had to have treatment like a cancer patient, so I've had to have chemotherapy. Now in the last 2 years, that's what I've been undergoing, and I'm slowly going into clinical remission. But what I'm trying to say is, for 5 years, the risk that I had, especially where they were situated, which was at the back of my eye, was that they could have grown, they could have latched onto my brain, they could have spread to other parts of my body. And what's been really interesting is in this journey, because it's a rare disease that I have, also formerly known as something called Wegener's. It's been sort of categorized as GPA. I can't pronounce its full terminology, so don't ask me. But that's the acronym, so we'll work with that. So, but basically, what I'm trying to say in a nutshell is, I've seen people lose their sight, they've become permanently ill, they can't work, the impact that this disease can have. And for 5 years to be rife in my body unmedicated is quite concerning. But the rarity of the disease prevented it from being detected. So it wasn't showing in my blood, it wasn't showing in anything. So all the appropriate medical care has been given for diagnoses. It's just that it wasn't picked up, and it involved specialist equipment and clinicians and professors, etc., in like rare disease departments in London, actually, where it was picked up. So I guess what I'm trying to say, going back to your original point, is that it is not always easy to detect illness. And if you don't present with a typical strand or a presentation, it's like a guessing game, isn't it, for doctors?
But did you feel passionate enough though to fight for that though, Mike? Because you know your own body. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I felt like I was dying. I lost lots of weight. My face physically deformed. My eye was about down to here.
Wow.
Actually physically protruded forward. I was getting chronic headaches. I've had to change various job roles. The impact is absolutely significant in reflection. And I remember one doctor even accusing me of kind of self-harming, actually, and causing my eye to swell and be bloodshot. I'll never forget that. So absolutely, I did have to fight for it. And, it absolutely has a traumatic impact on your well-being. You have to really take the time to sit and reflect and look at what you've gone through. But then equally as well, I mean, this poor woman, I can only imagine, I can empathise actually with what she's probably gone through as somebody that has been misdiagnosed on several occasions, one of which was cancer. So I do completely get it. But then also as well, at the other end of the tunnel, when I look at what the quality of care has been since I have received a diagnosis and a clear care pathway, yes, it's taken 2 years and is still ongoing, but I'm coming back. And that's the main thing, really. So it's really difficult, isn't it? And yeah, there is the question, do we look at legal battles with the NHS and, the blame and acclaim slogan? But actually, I just don't know. I sometimes don't think that gives you any comfort whatsoever. I don't know if I could argue what's happened to me has been medical negligence, or it's just, unfortunately, I fall into a bracket of people, and I don't fully understand the same predicament for the lady that you've discussed and her son. I'm not saying it's the same thing at all. But what I'm saying is from my perspective, I don't feel that going down that route and challenging the NHS is appropriate or the right thing to do. But that's my personal opinion.
I think as well, Mike, it's a really good point you make about the sort of litigious side of it. And I think we're not, on the American scale at all yet, thank goodness. But I also think a lot of members of the medical profession are very aware of the risks that they run by misdiagnosing, and don't actually feel that they can admit, such as in your case, because it was so rare, to not knowing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you completely, Sue. And, when I met with my consultants, about 2 months ago now, we had a really frank conversation, and I got quite emotional because I said, I need you to commit to this diagnosis because we need to work forward. And, I actually gained a sense, and if I'm honest with you, and I'd never named them professionals, but they openly said that there is a fear to some degree. And actually, we will take that confidence in saying that you present with 9 out of 10 indicators. But unfortunately for our profession, you have to try and get 10 out of 10 because there are so many people that do, to some degree, take advantage of that. And all I'm trying to say is nobody's perfect. Yes, I appreciate they're professionals, but a professional is a continuum of a person, isn't it? An electrician is a professional, a plumber is a professional, a carer is a professional, a teacher is a professional, a doctor is no different. We all make mistakes. And I think it's about how you respond. Now, I'm not, though, please don't think, and I don't want anybody, any viewer, to think that I'm saying for 1 minute that, it is right. It's not right. But I also do generally believe that not everybody makes mistakes deliberately. And I think that's the point I'm trying to prove.
And I think the mum in question had a lot of courage in actually questioning the medical professionals, because she's not a medical professional, and we can all look up stuff on the internet and get the wrong end of the stick or the right end of the stick. And very often it's about having more information. And that's really, yes, doctors can provide that, but to a certain extent, that's down to us as well. And I think she was armed probably with a bit more information, maybe, I don't know. But, I take my hat off to her because it takes a lot of courage to question a professional.
And I faced that, Sue. I faced that, as I said, that GP that sat in that doctor's practice that day, and asked me if I was self-harming, and I had to say, that's not acceptable. That's not appropriate. No, I'm not self-harming, and I've had to go through multiple doctors, multiple GPs from my local borough to specialist hospitals at Sheffield. So I completely empathise. And when you have that medical professional sat next to you telling you, this is what you've got, again, 8 out of 10 indicators, or 9 out of 10 symptoms, I should say. Indicators is the wrong word. But what I'm trying to say is then you've got all your family around you saying you aren't the medical professional. They are, you need to listen to them. But you also know your own body. And you think to yourself, how can this just simply be? And actually, in my case, it's an example where through challenging that, and this lady there has been another reason. And I think it's quite concerning. And I think you have got to be confident. I've sat in multidisciplinary team meetings with varied medical professionals and had to say to them, I disagree with your diagnoses. That's not easy. No. And I'm not saying that, it's always right, because I haven't always got it right, but I have been able to challenge, over like specific chemotherapies that I've undergone. I fought to get specific chemotherapies and come off others because I knew they were having no impact on my condition. The only thing they were doing was my hair was falling out. I was bleeding out of every orifice going, nose, mouth, you name it, it bled, and actually we're not all just textbook people. Just because that specific medication worked for somebody else doesn't mean it's going to work for me. Do you understand where I'm coming from? Because I think what you're raising to is that challenge on second opinions, isn't it? Am I correct? Please?
Yeah.
Kerry, what do you think, if you've got an opinion on it? No.
Medically I have, from personal experience. And a couple of things like you touched on there is an impact that it has on someone when you've got a medical professional telling you one thing and you know your own body and you know something's not quite right. And I was in that position when I had my youngest, and after I'd had my youngest, I didn't feel it was right. There was something not quite right, and I've got 3 children, so I'd experienced it before, and I knew something wasn't right. And I asked the midwife to come and check me again, and again it was, no, you're fine, you're okay. And after so many hours and a few more requests of saying, I don't feel right, something's not quite right, can you please check me again? She then realised I had an arterial bleed.
Wow.
So a doctor was called in and I was rushed to theatre. So a couple of things for me from what you've just spoken about, Mike, and Sue as well, is the impact that had on me years ago was that I was diagnosed with PTSD for the trauma that I'd gone through, because it was extremely traumatic. I did log a complaint through the NHS, and that was merely for me to say, at that time, I know and I fully understood how pushed that service was, because it was a few years ago. It was nothing against any medical profession, but I wanted it highlighted, as we hear already and still ongoing through the NHS, the shortages of staff and nurses and doctors, and them working absolutely ridiculous amount of hours. And it is not intentional error, but what do you expect when people, medical professionals especially, are pushed to the limit to work 18 hours a day? And I totally get, not everybody's the same. And like you say, one medication won't work for another. Not everyone's diagnosis comes from the same symptoms. That just doesn't happen. Every body is completely different. And I logged mine, but it was to highlight the fact that they were short-staffed and I was left. But I knew myself in my body, I wasn't right. And as I say, it took about 3 hours before they took me into theatre. And at that point, I don't want to go too graphic, but I'd lost, when you have babies, you lose blood, but I lost a lot of blood and it was really bad. And from me, I don't like the word complaint, I don't like it, but from that complaint, it didn't highlight anything other than we'd done what we needed to correctly. So there was no comfort in that for me doing it. It didn't do anything for me. I still found it quite traumatic.
Do you think, though, you've all touched on it a little bit, do you think we are afraid of asking for a second opinion because we are uneducated and we're almost putting our faith almost into the medical profession in front of us? That is, again, I'm going back to soaps, and it's almost like touching on last week's topics about soaps. But Coronation Street have got a huge line, haven't they, with that child that's dying in hospital, Leanne's son. And Leanne's pushing for a second opinion and all of that because she knows her son. But it's very clearly a point where do you think we're afraid of asking? Actually,
It's not being afraid, is it? It's I think society, it is more like we should have trust in these people. Why should we ask for a second opinion? You know, the trained, they are what they are, the professionals, especially medically. You've got to have a trust in that. But on the other hand, if they're going to prescribe you some medication for something and you're still not feeling right or any better after taking our medication for however long, or you're still not feeling right yourself, then I think you do need to go back again and go back again.
Yeah. Well, tell us at home if you've ever had to challenge that or talk about that, or maybe even fight for a family member or even a child for a second opinion. Remember, your views are just as important as ours, so please get in touch and we will try to share your stories. Following, I had a break on Thursday night. I didn't do Thursday's Thoughts.
We were all thankful for that.
I finally got into bed again really early and went to bed. But following James Bentley's Thursday Thoughts, who I thought did an incredible story about the students, but we will follow on after that, really. So, following James's thoughts about students going back, as one person states, the first few weeks of uni are usually a time for getting to know new friends and getting ready to get in your educational course and settling into a new city that you are calling home. Now, I wanted to touch on students' mental health today. So students are struggling and even preparing to not go home for Christmas this year, as students might be isolated. Now, before I go down the story of students and mental health, I think it's really important that we make it into a reality as well. And it's not just been students that have struggled. I think we've all struggled mentally in some sort of way. But one brave person that shared that on social media with us this week was Joe Wicks. So I just wanted to briefly So it's not just us as people or even students. There's even celebrities out there crying out that they're really struggling ever since Boris's announcement. Do you think we need to take into consideration the students' mental state, or is it just all about numbers and the economy?
Well, I think it's difficult, isn't it? Because absolutely we do need to take into account what these poor students are going through. And let's be honest, it is not the university experience that you pay £9,000 for a year, is it? You know, bless them, they're going and they're having to isolate and not engage. And well, they are engaging, but obviously they're giving it a go, but you don't pay that sort of money to go and have that experience and get that specialist teaching online, in my opinion, at all. I think it's morally wrong. I think it's ethically wrong. And I think that if students, I understand why there's an influx and a focus on trying to get young people into higher education, but I think our government should certainly be looking at adaptations for them in terms of their learning. However, that's not the predicament we're facing, is it? They're there and they're isolating and giving it a go. I guess the difficulty is, Nick, like anyone else that's having to isolate, what support is there for these students that's any different to you or I? Because we're all still going to face the same challenges. They're going to still have the same restrictions that we are, aren't they? They're not going to be allowed people to go and see them, etc. So
How hard is it, Mike, for a normal referral to mental health service without what's happening and without the uni students, not taking uni students into consideration, but even before that, and now you've got the young ones who are away from the family, in a different city anyway, generally. What services are there for them? I don't actually know what services are available for them through university.
Exactly. And I mean, the typical services that would have been available, your pastoral support, there'd have been counselling, etc., available at most universities. Then it's all going to go digital. And I mean, I don't know what you feel about it, Kerry, but from my perspective, as somebody that has shielded and gone through this, as you previously know, it's not enough. And okay, the thought of, like for me, for just flipping it on its head, for example, I'm starting to go out to work, etc., but I'm still not up and running properly. We are working effectively, but what I'm trying to say is the likelihood is that's not going to change before January. That'll be a year working like this. It's huge, isn't it? This level of containment. And I do understand the need for it because COVID's flying through the roof, isn't it? Let's be honest, most cities are spiking in some way or another, and I do agree that we have to take measures to keep safe. I guess for me, I just think it's a real shame that these students are having to experience this. And I guess there is the question of, if students choose to go to university, you know, what's the additional wraparound we can give them, which, as you've just said, Kerry, I don't know what's out there, if I'm honest.
Well, the thing is as well, what I don't get is that you've just briefly talked about being isolated, and I feel that if I have to isolate, I am surrounded by my comforts. I am surrounded by my house, by my telly, by my friends being down the road, by people around me. But we're talking about people that are maybe new coming to the city, that knows nobody, that knows absolutely nobody, and they're isolating, not in a house, in a room, in four walls. And the thought of, the other question that I've got is the thought of them not being able to go home at Christmas and to spend Christmas Day in that isolation. And yeah, we might be in isolation, but as I've just said, we're in the comforts of our home. We've got the comforts around us. Personally, if we're even thinking about that, if we're sending students back and isolating them straight away, and I know they've paid a lot of money, but maybe we need to talk about that. What's the point of being stuck in a room in university?
Completely agree.
I agree. I know.
And the thing is, to think about that they might have to do Christmas Day on this. If I was a university student, I would be phoning the uni going, right, I've paid this money. I'm not coming into that building because I want to spend time with my parents and my friends at Christmas. Tell me how you can support me to do this course while I'm at home. Because actually, that's your responsibility. It's not mine. I've done mine. I've paid what I need to pay. I'm giving up my room that I've paid for because I've decided to stay at home. Tell me now, university, how you are going to support me.
Yeah.
Nobody disagrees.
No, I think you're right, Nick. I think your first few, it's right with the person that you were reporting on, very often for those first year students, it's their first time away from home for any length of time. And students do get homesick in their first, after Freshers Week, when, it passes. I know it's a long time since I went to uni, but I can remember. Well, I can't remember what Freshers was week, and that's what I can remember.
Oh, I expect you're still there every weekend.
After that, it is a big change because it's not like a holiday. You go and it's all excitement. It's like going to any new place, really. And if it starts not to live up to your expectations, not even in such a dramatic way as these days, if you are a bit homesick, then it makes you even more homesick. So they are in a really difficult situation. I do wonder, given that all the teaching seems to be online, how wise it was a decision for them to go back.
I agree.
Actually, in a way, it would have been less damaging to postpone that first experience till next term.
Well, they can't fully experience it, can they?
No, exactly. And to start their learning online. I have to say, it's my daughter's 35 now. And so, it's a while since she started university, but I can remember being absolutely shocked at the fact that she only had something like 3 lectures a week, actual physical lectures a week. And a lot of her learning then was recorded lectures and stuff over the internet and individual private research. So even if they're back fully under normal circumstances, they wouldn't be getting all their teaching in a physical environment. That's what I'm trying to say. So I really do wonder about the wisdom of saying to them, you know, come now in October. And a lot of it is down to finance, I think.
Yeah.
Because, you know,
business and economy.
Yeah, the universities need the money. And I can remember my son saying when he was at uni, oh, the undergraduates, so the first to third years or first to fourth years, they're the poor relations actually, because the money comes in from the doctorates and the PhDs and the research grants.
But to be fair though, like I'm sick of hearing the economy. I'm absolutely sick to death of hearing the economy, and I get it. I get that we need to get back up and running. I get that businesses are struggling. I get pubs and restaurants need to be open. But to me, it's two options. We need people to make the economy. And if we don't have the people because they're in hospital with COVID or they're closing their eyes because they're dying of it, the economy is going to fail anyway.
I'm going to disagree with you. I'm going to disagree with a little bit with you there, because I look at, I'm 50-50 on all of it, but look at the economy, whereas in they shut down all the shops and the businesses. How many businesses have gone bust? This Cineworld or Cineworld, whatever you call it, is going bust. So the whole reason behind it is if the government had to bail out, I don't like that way, but if they had to bail out all these businesses and then they've done this with the universities and didn't get the funding from universities, what would go bust? Would the tutors go unemployed? How would it all work?
But Kerry, the death rate's going back up again.
But could we just say another thing in the fact that, no disrespect, what have we seen in the news recently about all these stupid people who were not adhering to restrictions and putting everybody at risk for it? So I don't blame the government. I actually blame public people, because I'm not one that's going out there going to a party of 60 people. Because I've got my head screwed on a bit and I wouldn't want to do that and put people at risk. You go to a party with 60 people, who are these other 59 people being around? You're passing the virus around.
I've got to say, Kerry, which is probably not going to surprise you, I agree with you.
Thank you. Thank you. But if things aren't slowly put back into place, what are we going to be in? A Great Depression again? Because people like, close this down, stop doing this, don't do this.
Okay, one question then to you. I'm getting political now. Is Boris Johnson's message clear?
Is his message clear?
Yeah, and what we should be doing and what we shouldn't be doing. Is it clear? Are you 100% knowing?
Okay, so can I say how I perceive Boris Johnson's message? I'd love to tell you how I've perceived it, because I don't think I'm stupid, to be honest, in all honesty. But I'm being careful. I'm not going out surrounding myself with people. I'm wearing a mask, for starters. I'm keeping a distance. I'm not doing anything what you're saying about gatherings and congregations. I'm not doing anything like that. I'm not panic buying. I think it is clear. I think when you read in the media and the news, Nicholas, I think at the end of the day is people are making things a lot of the time into something huge when it's actually not. Just sit for a minute and just think, wear a mask, don't overshop, don't mix with loads of people, be careful. I've been a key worker throughout this, and I've been having to go out and see people. My kids have had to go to school, my eldest has had to go to work. Not one of us, touch wood, and we're not going to, has had any symptoms of the virus, because we're following the regulations and the rules. Yeah. So if that's not enough for someone to see, someone that's still out there around everybody, around lots of different people, and adhering to rules and not contracting the virus or anything like that, isn't it simple enough? You've got people who choose to make it a big issue what it is, and people choose to not adhere to simple rules. Good on you, Boris, well done.
Oh, Kerry, I love it when you get heated.
getting a bit of sweat on. I went, oh, got a bit of hot heat coming out my jumper then because I was really going for
tell us
it.
what you think. Tell us if you think it's about economy and numbers or if it's about human beings and survival. Tell us what you think, share your view, and make sure you have your say on all our social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook and Twitter. Please, please follow us. Our final subject is quite a light subject because I thought we've gone quite deep tonight. So I'm talking about Lincolnshire Day. So good evening, Lincolnshire. As we talk about you this evening, Lincolnshire gets a choir together on Zoom to celebrate Lincolnshire Day. The band Scouting for Girls joined with the help of Radio Lincolnshire as they sang the band's song Home. What do you think?
Sorry?
They sang the Scouting for Girls song. They sang the original song that they sang of Home.
Just spell that. So, right, okay, sorry. Yeah. I thought you said another word. I'm sorry. I was a little bit confused with the wording. It doesn't matter. Sorry, carry on, Nick. Sorry.
So, what do you think of the power of singing? And to begin with, I'm going to come over to our choir expert who's sat here this evening, Sue Humphrey. Tell us about the power of singing.
Well, you just know how I feel about it. It's amazing. It's just amazing. And I mean, I've been part of a local community choir whose name I won't mention because that will be advertising, for 5 years now. And for me, it was a lifesaver. It is not just about singing once a week. It's about the whole community, really. And it's about there being a place for everybody in it. So it doesn't matter whether you're the best singer in the world or a mediocre singer or not particularly a good singer. If you can anywhere near hold a tune, then you can sing.
And I've actually got an exclusive. I've got a video of Kerry Gillespie singing. Give me a second.
Don't even dare. I was going to say the power of singing makes you to do like listen to people sing, except when Nicholas sings, because it doesn't sound the greatest, to be honest. Do you know what I mean?
I completely agree with Sue. I've been a singer all my life. Ran many choirs, sang in many choirs. And to me, I completely agree with you, Sue. In part, it saved my life. It completely saved my life. To put emotion and power in a song relieves so many emotions sometimes that you're just finding so hard to get out of.
Yeah, we've got a new season of songs now. I mean, we're doing everything remotely at the moment on Zoom, which is challenging sometimes, but fine. But we've got a new season of songs to learn, so another 10 songs. And the people who run the choir have been just tremendous. Last week, for example, I'd had a bit of a grotty day, a bit like you, Kerry, today, and not and I thought, can I be bothered to log on tonight? Do I really want to do this? And literally, I was on for 5 minutes and just seeing everybody's face and having a bit of chat online before we even started singing. Was just, yeah, exactly. It's just amazing.
Moving us forward onto it, I've got a special announcement. So there is a reason that we brought this up this evening. We finish series 1 of Loose Links on the 15th of December. We do have a Christmas special between Christmas and New Year, Tuesday between Christmas and New Year, so that Christmas special will be on. But we finish by putting together a Loose Links choir, which the song will be, I can't remember the song. What's that? What's that one?
Band-Aid.
I'll be home for Christmas. I'll be home for Christmas is the song, but we are looking for.
I'll be home for Christmas. You were singing a completely different song. You were singing Band-Aid, man.
He was.
I'll be home for Christmas. I'll be home for Christmas is the song. Well,
I'm telling you now, Nick. You get your Kylie Minogue Christmas hat on. I'll be here to watch.
Sure. If I'm wrong, I'll repeat it next week. But I'm sure that's the song. But we are crying out for willing volunteers to come and sing in the Christmas choir. You will perform on the very last show, and you will be performing with a montage of clips of Loose Links over the last couple of months. So please come and sing with us. Come and be part of the choir. Come and be part of the Loose Links choir. The choir is run by James Bentley. He will be choir conductor and musical director. So there will be Zoom practices and stuff like that. Even if you can't sing, but you love a good sing song, come and join us and you can be part of the Loose Links choir. Also, we've got some coming news for the new year. I am going to prepare you now. Next year, we are planning a podcast that will not be run by me. I will take the other seat of a panelist. As the podcast is going to be run by James Bentley, but it's a let loose podcast. So that means there's a bit more language in it and there's a bit more free speech. So if that's your thing, Kerry's there.
I'm there. I've reframed all of these. I've reframed.
Hey, Kerry, love. Do you reckon they'll let me and you on it?
I think so now. You might be banned at that point.
So we've got that coming up. We've got a live show maybe next August. There's lots and lots coming up in the next year or so. So please be a part of it. Thank my panel for this evening. The amazing and outstanding and person that always bloody agrees with Kerry, Mike Curtis. Also, the queen and the heart of Cilla Black, Kerry Gillespie. And the one with the golden smile, Sue Humphrey. Join us next week as we are joined by Joe Lloyd, Georgina, and also Ben Jamie. Also performing will be Alex Kyle, as he's a local singer, so he'll be closing our show. All that and a lot more on next week's Loose Links. But for now, good night.